Perfect. So welcome to Under the Hat this week. We're delighted to have Spencer Dennis with us from CoachNow. Spencer and I go way back a few years. Spencer, thanks for giving up some of your time today and helping us talk about how to grow your coaching business.
Absolutely. No, really, really pumped to be here. And this is absolutely what I love to talk about. So thanks for the folks that joined live, and hopefully this will translate well for those watching the recording.
Yeah, perfect. Guys, always with Under the Hat, if you've got any questions, you can raise your hand or you can post it in the chat box. We'll get to them as we go through the session. The plan today with Spencer is really to chat a little bit about, as we've said, growing your coaching business. But before we get to that, Spencer, I know you kind of developed this platform originally called Edufy, quite a few years ago now, and it's gone from strength to strength. And I think a lot of people that will be on this Zoom today will already be aware of what you do, but how to maximize it, how to help connect with your students is a key thing for coaches, and especially in the past year and the current times that we're going through. So I think it'd be great to hear a little bit of your background as to how you got to this point, and really for you, some of your key learnings, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like everybody on the call today, once upon a time I was a golf coach, and I still do that a little bit on the side of what I'm currently doing as a great way to test our platform. But once upon a time I was coaching full time, 40, 50 hours a week. And then as a result, I was emailing, texting, YouTubing, and using all these other coaching tools back then, another 30 or 40 hours a week. And the reason being is that I wanted my athletes and their support, whether that be other coaches or family members, especially with the youth athletes, to all be in sync. And it just flat out wasn't working, right? If somebody came to see me, and this was back in 2014, 13 at time, they would probably leave with 13, 14 emails as a result of hanging out, because I wanted to make sure, again, they had their swings, they had their notes, they had their drills, all of that. And it was a complete and absolute nightmare, as I'm sure many of you can identify. And maybe some of you are still living this a little bit if you're not actively using CoachNow. So at that point, I was incredibly frustrated with the status quo within the world of instruction and coaching. There was no technology that helped us communicate more effectively, connect more effectively, consolidate and collaborate. So at that time, there were platforms that were built out for businesses, for coding, for doctors and things like that, but there was nothing in the world that would benefit us. And so at that point, luckily, I had two really, really intelligent friends that have been in the software space and the technology space, and we built out the product that you all are experiencing now. We were acquired in 2017 by a group called ShotZoom. And since then, we've continued to grow. And now we're in 60 sports, 140 countries. And effectively, we have two products at this point. So we have a software product and an education product, and they work obviously hand in hand very, very well. And the education piece is really focused around the business of coaching. And specifically, our first level in some ways is really trying to help coaches stop selling time for money. And this has been a passion of mine for many years. And because of our software, we're able to allow coaches to stay connected and charge a more subscription-based coaching model versus an hourly model. And that's something we've been pioneering for a long time. And now we've put it into the format of a course that people can take to fully understand not only the power of CoachNow, but also how to attract more clients, how to build compelling coaching offers, how to grow your social media audience, like anything and everything that would help someone that wants to get to the point of generating six figures or above, coaching potentially 20 to 30 hours a week, because they've got multiple streams of income and they're not just exclusively exchanging time for money, in this case on the lesson tee. So that's where we are today. Yeah, we've had a lot happen for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. I mean, the traditional golf coach it's a one-on-one lesson, and people pay for the time that you're with them. And then a lot of us, there's a lot of great coaches that we all are, and obviously we testament to David's name and that reputation, and we always go above and beyond. And like you say, we're emailing, texting, WhatsApping, and we'll have bits of information, drills, videos pretty much everywhere. So I think CoachNow has really helped solidify that communication stream. But still, traditionally, golf pros are generally, some are very, very good. I'm not trying to generalize, but a lot of them are still caught in that trap of, trying to build their business, but going, there's only so many hours in the day. How do I really get to where I need to be? How do I appeal to different markets? And I know that's something you were keen to talk about, is how to do that. I think something for me in my role of trying to help certify our instructors and help provide ongoing education, our instructors around the world, either whether they're based at one of our academies or they've done our certification program and they have maybe their own facility, I think it's a great opportunity for them to look and go, well, where could I take my instruction to where I am right now? And obviously everybody's in a slightly different situation. Some people are employed, some people are employed and commission based, some people have their own business and it's all on them, and it's whether they sink or swim, if you like. But it'd be great to hear a little bit of your learnings in terms of how to guide an instructor through that.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of different things that I could say, and I likely will by the end of the conversation. But I think two of the biggest things that I think are important for everyone to own and understand is their mindset. And when I say two, I mean kind of two mindset tweaks, as we put it. And one of those is doing everything you can to move away from lessons and into long-term coaching, long-term development, building out coaching programs versus lessons. And we at CoachNow don't even use the word lesson. It's kind of banned from our vocabulary. And the reason why is because that's a pure time for money exchange concept, right? And I'm talking not only about in-person lessons, but online lessons. That shouldn't be a part of anybody's business as well. And the reason why, that's still a time for money exchange that doesn't go anywhere. And the simplest example of that is somebody sends you a swing video, you draw a bunch of lines on it, you send it back, they pay you $50, and that's it. That's not scalable. That's still going to lead to burnout, and it doesn't create an opportunity for growth for either person. What ends up happening is the athlete goes, well, I'm really bad, and so now what do I do? Right? You've addressed how terrible they are, but you need to make sure that you give them a path forward. And with CoachNow, the technology that we have, you're able to do that. And so my goal a lot of times is to say, well, if you're going to do some sort of video analysis exchange, that should be the assessment that moves you to a long-term relationship. And you need to have offers ready to go for that person based on their goal orientation and their financial capability and their time capability and all these things, versus just saying, well, I'm going to do a lesson and this is what I do. And lessons also imply quick fixes, which we know doesn't happen, right? You guys have all been doing this a long time. You understand that you can't just throw a Band-Aid on somebody and all of a sudden they're better. So there's a large amount of instructors and teachers out there that are doing lessons, and that's what they're doing. But if you want to separate yourself from the crowd, my opinion, and we've tested this in 60 sports, around the world for many, many years, is that the ones that have the business of their dreams, right? The thing that they're excited about and they're not burning out, is because they're focusing on coaching and not lessons. And I know that seems like a very simple thing to say, but you would be surprised how many people are only exchanging time for money. And they're not necessarily saying, okay, I'll see you in person and I'll stay connected with you on the in-between times. We'll have check-ins. Let's charge this on a monthly or an annual basis, right? So lessons versus coaching would be one key mindset tweak, and making sure that you're doing everything you can to introduce programming that helps you with that. And the other, the more overarching mindset, I think, is whether you're employed, whether you have your own business, whether you're on commission, any of those, is to see yourself as an entrepreneur first and a coach second. The reason being is that you never know where your career is headed. Stuart, you know better than most, right? Even at the academy level, no job is safe. There's lots of turnover at academies. We see that across all different sports. No job is safe at a facility. And ultimately, even if you're renting a spot at a facility, that facility could close. And my hope for everybody listening to this and all the coaches that we work with is that you make decisions based out of an entrepreneurial focus versus a coach focus. And an easy example of this would be coaches continue to get certified in all sorts of certifications, but they don't necessarily have an understanding of how to package and sell that knowledge, right? Knowledge does not equal money, right? You need to know how to package it and sell it systematically. So if I'm focused on getting all the certifications that are out there, that's fantastic. But if you're not able to sell that in a compelling way and hopefully systematically, that isn't just a time for money exchange, then you're always going to be stuck. So if you're making decisions from an entrepreneurial mindset, you're going to say, well, does this certification help me save time? Does this certification help increase my client retention? Does this certification make me more money in some way? Right? These are questions that an entrepreneur would ask. And then you go, well, if it fits in one of those categories, then yeah, let's get this certification because it's actually going to help my bottom line. Versus I'm going to buy 5 TrackMans, all the K vests, get all the certifications, and then be broke because I don't know how to get leads in the door. I don't know how to get customers in the door to actually interact with me. So my hope is that you think about this as a true business, whether you're employed or not. You are your own company, right? In this case, it'd be like Spencer Dennis LLC or something like that, whether I'm working for someone or not. And if you have a group of entrepreneurs, like in the Leadbetter universe, where everybody's focused on building as big a business as possible, then obviously that's going to help the larger Leadbetter brand or any facility that you're a part of.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic point, and something that golf instructors they do give the technical information generally. They love to have the latest information about the trends, and the reality is all of the instructors that we work with are already a very high standard. So you go, well, you
Absolutely.
can help pretty much anyone out there. And yes, you can always increase your knowledge in certain areas, whether it's ground reaction forces or whatnot. But how good are you at developing your business? How good are you at securing your future? How good are you at kind of, your retention and your growth? And I think that is a little bit the mindset from the traditional golf instructor. Is very much caught in the trap of the traditional, as we say, lesson. It's on the tee, right, hour after hour, and like you say, it does lead to burnout. I remember, when I first started out, being a very busy academy, which was great for my experience and great for me to get better at coaching and teaching and interacting with people. But at the same time, 5 years in, you were definitely feeling like you were burnt out.
Oh yeah.
And you weren't then thinking, and you've been there, you're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about different revenue streams can I bring in. And that's something that we're trying to do with our lead certifications, is increase the awareness of the whole, how do you market yourself, how do you position yourself, what different opportunities can you create, how can you develop a little bit, like you say, that entrepreneurial mindset to help you, because as you say, you never know where your career is going to go. You know what hurdles or speed bumps you're going to face along the way, and you need to try and have things in place that can really help you. So from your experience, Spencer, what are some of the killers outside of selling your time for money? And what are some of the other coaching killers that you've seen that you feel as though the platform you've developed in the education has really helped overcome?
Yeah, so I didn't necessarily allude to this perfectly as far as my history of why we built the platform, but there's 2 big things that we're all facing, and it hasn't changed over the last 7 years. One of those is retention. And what I mean by that is that we forget more than we remember. And if you're in the business of sharing your expertise with somebody and helping them improve their skills, the sad reality is that they're going to leave that coaching session and forget most of what they've learned within a week. So statistically, you lose about 40% of what you learned immediately upon leaving a learning environment. And then over a week, you lose about 90% if you don't have constant review and interaction with the content that you learned, right? So, and it's even worse than those numbers because no one starts at 100% retention, right? So let's say you start at 75%, then you lose 40, and now you're basically at zero by the end of a week. So what we talk about is if you can improve an athlete's retention, meaning they can remember more, they're going to practice more effectively because you can't practice what you don't remember. And I think we've all struggled with athletes that come to our lessons, right, after a week or two, and you go, well, how'd you do? Oh, well, I didn't really practice that much. Why? Oh, I wasn't really sure what to do. Okay, well, that's on the coaches. That's the coach's problem right there, right? To not give them what they need to be successful. And so therefore, this athlete doesn't have any really forward momentum and they're getting frustrated and having a difficult time. And so we believe wholeheartedly, if you can improve that retention, then you're going to improve your retention, meaning your client retention. And statistically, if you can improve your client retention by about 5%, your profits are going to go up by at least 25. So I think far too many coaches are focused on lead generation, marketing, SEO, attracting new clients versus really dialing in their customer experience with their current customers. Again, if you can increase that retention by just a little bit, those customers not only will pay you more long term, but they will bring other customers with them because they are happy. And so retention is a huge deal. And I think all of you listening to this really need to understand that the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, do a little research on that for yourself. Just understand that anything you can do to battle that curve is a big deal. The other thing, the other killer, as we say, that also feeds into that forgetting curve is distraction. And I think we all can identify with the world that we live in now. We're being constantly pinged by all the different services that we're a part of and all the social media. And it's not only the content itself, but it's the notification that the content is there. So there's just constant distraction, and there's literally trillions of dollars being spent every year to distract us. And it's not just distracting us as coaches, but it's distracting our athletes, which is even worse. And especially in golf, there's no shortage of free content. And so if you're not constantly in front of your athlete, they're going to be a typical bored golfer and go find the content elsewhere. So for us, we want to help you create a distraction-free environment where you can communicate with folks, and that it can essentially, for everybody listening here, be your private golf channel with your athletes. And not only in a one-on-one sense, but also in a group sense, to where you can have your own community and you're not competing with the Facebook or Instagram algorithms, and you're not competing with TikTok and all these other, latest trends as far as golf instruction is concerned. So I think if you really hone in on reducing distraction as best you can and understanding that that's just a thing, and understanding that people forget more than they remember, if you can focus on trying to solving those problems, then I think you're on the right track, I guess, is the easiest way to say that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. And I think the massive value that CoachNow brings to is what you said there, Spencer. It's not just the individual space that the person has, but as a coach, it's being able to create group space. And you don't have kind of that pet hate when you have, I guess, students come to you and they're like, I've been watching YouTube, and I've been looking at this, I've been on YouTube, and I've been looking at this. And you go, well, there's great information out there. I'm not saying the information's not great, but do you know that it's relevant to you? As
Exactly.
a coach, if I have my group space for my client, I can tailor that space to hopefully take that YouTube distraction away from them, as long as I'm populating that space often enough to keep their attention, and I'm keeping the content relevant to my coaching style based on them. And then they've got their individual space where you drop in stuff that is specific to their journey. And again, I think that is such a personal service but you also have your group space that then allows you to diversify and offer other things as well in your wheelhouse. So more spokes to your wheel, I guess, would be something that I would say.
Yeah, and in that group environment, and I hope everybody kind of grasps onto this as I say this, is that there's no reason why you shouldn't be monetizing that experience, right? So now you've moved a little bit away from exchanging time for money, because you can create a group, you can create a paid community within CoachNow. And because there's no search engine, there's no content discovery, you don't have to worry about your golfer athletes seeing any other content other than what you are sharing with them. And if they're going to YouTube or to Golf Digest or other things, again, this might sound a little harsh or a little critical, but that's on you because you're not in front of them. If you're feeding them the information in a cadence that makes sense for them, and they're a part of your world, right? And in this case, they're a part of the Leadbetter universe, then there's no reason for them to go anywhere else. And each of you as individual coaches have that capability to keep your, well, I'll say it this way too. I think the other thing is a lot of coaches get held up on whether people are paying them for one-to-one instruction. And if they're not, then they don't pay attention to them anymore. And a good example of how to do it the right way, in my opinion, is Martin Chuck with Tour Striker. So hopefully a lot of you guys know Tour Striker training products and Martin Chuck. If you don't, please look him up, because he's the person you all should be modeling from a business perspective. He's got lots and lots of streams of income, and many of them are passive. But to speak clearly about the point I'm trying to make is that he's got over 3,000 spaces within CoachNow. Obviously, not all of these people are paying him month in, month out, or paying to go to his golf schools because they've been to the golf school and now they're not there. But he uses CoachNow as his client retention management, CRM. And he will message those 3,000 people constantly with, hey, I've got a golf school's coming up, or hey, we just released a new training aid, or hey, I've got a new video, I want you to make sure you check it out. So he is not deleting relationships because he understands how hard it is to create relationships. And he calls everyone in his world a part of Tour Striker Nation. So this goes into part of our education as well, is that we want you to stop selling time for money. We want to help you scale that to where you're creating multiple streams of income. And we want you to get to the Martin Chuck or the David Leadbetter side of things where you become a brand. Like those are essentially the 3 steps of our blueprint, is to help you go from one to the next to the next. Because David has done what pretty much no one has done, which is to sell, not only license their likeness, but to literally sell their likeness to a larger company. And I'm always telling coaches, run your business as if you plan to sell it. But most coaches could never step away from their business because they are their business. And that's why the pandemic was so painful for all of us, is because once you eliminate the ability to exchange time for money in a lesson model, then you have no money. And I'm very hopeful that beyond, with this conversation and other things that hopefully you guys are learning, that you figure out a way to protect yourself and move through those different stages.
Yeah, I think the pandemic is obviously unfortunate, and it's still ongoing, and it's still difficult in many countries around the world. But I think within our business and our industry, it's maybe certainly awakened a lot of golf instructors out there to go, actually, I need to look at options and different avenues here. I need to maybe update how I'm doing things. And I think certainly for us as a business, there were a few projects and things that we've always talked about and had on the back burner that you went, yeah, we should have done that when we said we were going to do it, and then we actually got to doing it quickly through necessity. And you go, yeah, we've got to work a little bit more, and I guess future-proof yourself a little bit, for want of a better word. And you've got to look at, like Martin there, with all of his different streams. There are a number of other people that have been successful in doing that, and I guess it just comes back to having that vision. It comes back to your mindset, being an entrepreneurial mindset, and looking at where would I like to go, what would I love to achieve, and each day just taking a small piece of action. And I think that's something, you know, when I've been reading a lot or listening to podcasts, you hear successful people are habitual action takers. They realize that today it might not be a step forward, but they'll take the step forward to the best of their ability in that moment, knowing fine well that they're moving forward and they're staying in the present and trying to move towards the future, but they're not standing still or regressing. And I think that's a key. And it's very easy, like you say, when you're selling time for money and you're busy 8, 9, 10 hours on the tee, it doesn't allow you time to really strategize for the future. It doesn't allow you time to map out what you're trying to do and take some actions where, you know, you start to build that community. You use the platform as a CRM system, and it allows you to keep those relationships that you have and keep in front of the people that you've got, which helps your retention, but also new people coming in. It helps build that relationship. And if you've got people in there that are commenting and it's positive because they trust you, they've worked with you, they know you, that's a great starting place for any new person coming into your coaching world, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, and this is not just in golf, but across many sports, especially the technical sports, tennis, baseball, golf, and others, coaches get so hung up on video analysis, but they don't necessarily focus on the community building or the connection points and the relationship aspect of it. Most of us are not coaching tour level players. And even at the tour level, I'll tell you, it's more about the relationship than it is your ability to draw all the lines. And I'm simplifying this because we hear a lot of coaches say, oh, I wish CoachNow had X feature, X feature for analysis. And my rebuttal to that is, if we added that, would that increase your revenue? Would that save you time? Or would it actually cost you more time? Right? And these are the questions I'm always asking coaches when they ask for these things. And the truth is, no, it wouldn't save me time. It wouldn't increase my revenue. And we at CoachNow are always focused on building out features that first and foremost save coaches time. And then secondly, provide that deeper relationship opportunity. And then thirdly, give you opportunities to create new revenue that you didn't have before. And not everyone has to be a Martin Chuck type personality or a Leadbetter type personality to have success in these ways. You have a clientele, you have your niche. Hopefully you've identified what makes you stand out versus other coaches in your area or in your sport. And hopefully you fully understand who your actual customer is. And the reason I wanted to share this particular part is that I ask a lot of coaches in their sport who their ideal customer is, and they just go, well, it's a golfer or it's a soccer player. Well, no, that's not true. It's someone way more specific than that. And I would always encourage coaches, instead of saying I coach golf or I coach baseball, we'll use a baseball example for this. It would say, well, yes, I'm in the world of baseball, but my clients are future college players that are looking on improving their exit velocity, meaning they want to become better at batting and be able to hit the ball further. That's so specific that future college players will go, that's the coach for me. That's what I'm trying to improve. And that particular coach is going to have a booming business because of it. So I would just encourage everybody here to be hyper specific with who you work with and specific to what you do, and also be okay with turning people away, because it is a relationship that you're building. And if you can build deep ones, you're going to have a really successful business with way less effort, because you're not going to be trying to pull people along that aren't your style of people.
Yeah, I think that the point you made is really, it's a great reflection tool for any instructor that's listening to this to look and go, you know, do I want to teach? You know, where am I? What am I really looking at? And if specific right now, how can I be more specific for the future, and how will that help me? I think that's a real key takeaway from what you've just talked about there for anybody watching.
Yeah, and I think a real simple exercise that I would challenge all of you with, this is something that we cover in more detail in our level 1 blueprint, but I would look at your Instagram bio. And the reason why I would start there is because there's only a certain amount of characters you can add. You can't just go on and on about how wonderful you are and everything else. Most coaches that I see, their Instagram bio will talk about their certifications, and that's it. My encouragement to you is to focus on what you can do for someone else versus telling how great you are. Because honestly, nobody cares. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about you. They only care about what you can do for them, right? So the only reason I'm really in this conversation is that hopefully there's something I can do for you. You're not going to care about my history or my certifications or anything else. Those are points of validation potentially, but the only way I'm going to get your interest is if you feel like I can do something for you. And I would just encourage you to take your Instagram bio and take that test and go, well, how clear can I be with who I serve and what I do? And how can I direct them to a call to action? How can I get them to do something? Because social media isn't there for you to celebrate all your wins and championships with players. It's there to bring new people into your world. It's not even there to retain clients because they're so distracted. So our belief, and we've seen this over many years, is that you attract a client via social media and then you interact with that client inside of CoachNow. Right? Social media is the lead, and then CoachNow is the retention. And if you follow that very clearly, it makes it very obvious what each channel should be doing for you. And I think if you take that test and see how creative you can be on Instagram, it's a good place to start on identifying who you are and what you want to do and maybe refining that, because you can never be clear enough, I think, in that way.
Yeah, no, I think, like you say, that's a great starting point and a great point about the social media being a leads generator. As long as you have the right messaging in there and the right content and a call to action. You've seen a lot of really successful coaches, not just in golf, but multiple
Uh-huh.
sports, and you've guided them through some of your principles to help them be successful. What other pieces of advice would you give, I guess, our golf instructors out there and coaches to help generate leads and generate kind of a little bit of impetus about them as a coach outside of what we've just talked about?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I will recap a little bit of what I said because I think it's important as a starting point, is that if you don't know who you are and who your target audience is, then all your efforts are going to be wasted. So let's just imagine you're spending money on advertising. If you don't know who you want to target on, let's say, a Facebook ad, and you just say, I want to target golfers, that's way too vague. You're going to basically be burning money in a trash can because you're not going after the right audience. If you can't tell that audience who you are and why they should care, that's burning money in a trash can as well if you're actually spending money on advertising. The last part is if you don't have a compelling coaching offer, something to get them to take action and to engage with you, whether that's a free offer, a paid offer, then again, you're wasting money. So I would look at it in three ways, right? And again, the blueprint, we go over this for 6 hours and a whole bunch of other supplementary content to help with this. But again, do your best to understand who you are. Do your best to pick a very specific niche of the people that you serve. And even if you're a new coach, I can tell you I was a new coach once upon a time as well. And I was very clear that whoever I worked with was similar to you, Stuart, was that you have to be incredibly dedicated and you have to commit to a long-term plan. Otherwise, this isn't going anywhere. And the players I worked with all wanted to be competitive, whether it be their club championship or a professional tournament. So that was where I went a little level deeper. And then I also actively collaborated with coaches. So as I'm going through this, know who you are, know your niche, do your best to create a very compelling offer. And you can have free lead magnets where it's, hey, download my ebook or check out my video to better putting, whatever it is. If you can get their contact information as an exchange for that, that's gonna be very helpful. And then I would also encourage all of you, and I think a lot of you are doing this anyway, is if you're really trying to generate warm leads that will come to you and have some affinity for you, they're not just out of the blue random golfer off of Instagram. Social media is a very small component of your overall success points in generating leads, but collaboration is going to bring you the majority of them. And what I mean by that is find complementary businesses and or coaches that can help drive you leads. So in my world, once upon a time, I left the academy. I was in a new town. I didn't know anybody, but I did know a high performance mental coach that did work with golfers. So I latched onto him and became his go-to golf coach. And then we collaborated with athletes. That was a big reason why CoachNow was invented, because that was really hard because we were doing that via email. But nevertheless, he was driving me customers and vice versa. I then linked up with a functional movement trainer, and it was the same thing. And then all three of us were collaborating and sharing clients. I also teamed up with all the local wineries in my area because I lived in an area where there was a booming wine industry, a handful of golf courses. I went to every winery and said, I'm your guy. If any of your wine members want to do coaching or if you want to do some sort of clinic where there's a wine tasting at the end, I'm your guy. All of those drove leads. So then in a matter of months, I went from nobody knowing who I was to just being packed. So I think you have to look at your surrounding areas and see what you can do to tap into those shared customer bases. And I don't believe a lot of coaches are doing that, or if they are, they're not doing it to the extent that they could.
I think that's great advice. And just before we get to some questions here, Spencer, I know we've probably got a few questions people will want to ask. So, you know, guys, if you're watching, please prepare something. I'm sure there's some information that Spencer can help you out with to help your career. I've been around kind of Edufy as it was to CoachNow. You and I've spoke for a number of years, and you're continually developing and evolving. It'd be great to hear a little bit about how the platform has evolved, where it's got to, but also how it's helping coaches and how it's educating coaches in not what you've just talked about, but what are the options for the listeners today if they're interested. They're not currently using CoachNow, because it's a great platform. We use it within the Leadbetter network. All of our coaches use it to submit their work when they do their certification. And a lot of our coaches use it to communicate with their students as well. But it'd be great to kind of for you to bring a little bit more of the platform to life for anybody that hasn't experienced it.
Sure. Well, to be clear, there's many, many opportunities for product demos and things like that. So if you are interested in seeing the product live, if you haven't seen it, you can head over to coachnow.io, book yourself a demo session, or check out some of our recorded content. That'll be easy for you. But I think one of the big things that we try to emphasize always is that distraction point. And I'm going to always advocate to anybody that you have less channels rather than more channels as a way to communicate with your customers, especially. You're going to have a lot of channels to try to find leads. I get that because you're going to try a lot of different things. But once you get a customer, please move them out of email. Please move them out of text. Please move them out of WhatsApp or WeChat or any of these other things if you can, and pull them into CoachNow. If CoachNow is not your choice of platform, then just use WeChat or just use WhatsApp. Just use one thing only. I hope it's CoachNow because we're built for coaches. These other things aren't. But if CoachNow isn't your choice, please just choose one. And the reason why is that it's imperative that you don't become a victim of your athletes or their parents' communication style, because ultimately then you'll be using dozens of things to communicate and your life will suck. You'll just be so burnt out. You'll be getting notifications left and right from all these different things. You'll be stressed because you'll forget things. When I first met David, he was getting text messages from Lydia, Michelle, and all sorts of people into his text message thread. And he was at lunch, just panicking basically. And he said, please help me stop that. So why I'm sharing this is that CoachNow was built pretty much around that centerpiece and Stuart, you said this a long time ago very well, as far as the athletes in the middle and their support and their information is surrounding them. And I think that's what we really are good at and what we pay attention to. And so when you go into the platform, you'll see that there's opportunities to have one communication, small group or large group communication. You could have a group with 40,000 people in it if you want. And you have an opportunity to monetize those in different ways. And then as far as where CoachNow is and where we're headed, and I kind of said this before, is that we're looking at any which way we can to save time. So there's going to be some automation features that we continue to build out soon. We're also going to be building out some analytical features to make sure that as coaches, you understand how your athletes are interacting with the content, and then we'll bubble that up to where you as an academy owner would understand that. And then we're going to be looking at introducing some sort of subscription management so that coaches can actually run their subscriptions through the platform. So all these things to consolidate and centralize communications and centralize the business side of things. And I think if you look at other tools out there, I think they are just that. They're tools, they're video analysis tools, mostly in the world of golf. And for us, we're really focused on the entire sphere of coaching and what it takes, and more importantly, how to generate that revenue. On the education piece, we're doing everything we can, similar to what we talked about now, to move these coaches through these reasonable levels and give them action items. So it's not just about, as you guys know as coaches, it's not just about the information, but it's giving actionable steps that coaches can take, like you said, Stuart, a few minutes ago, where you're making a little bit of progress each and every day. And more often than not, if I talk to a coach and I say, well, what's your forecast for the year? Well, how much do you think you're going to make? I don't know. I didn't even think about it. Mm-hmm. That's problem number one, right? I do forecasts every month. That's just part of running a business. And my parents own restaurants. They have to understand what their goals are. They need to know what their revenue was from the year before so they can order the correct amount of food product. But we as coaches is kind of fly by the seat of our pants. And I'm hopeful that anybody listening to this just becomes a little bit more planful, thoughtful, however you want to describe it, for their business. And you set a big goal, just like you're asking your athletes, and you work backwards from there to achieve it. So I'm not sure if that answered your question directly. I think I went around and around and around a little bit, but hopefully some of that resonated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's some great information. So at this point, Spencer, we'll look to see if there's any questions from the group.
Yeah.
I have one more if somebody's not ready with one, but we'll give them a second to see if they've got anything that they'd like to ask you. You talked a little bit about monetizing the opportunities. How does that work within CoachNow?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, and this is a good clarifying point, right now, everybody is using their own billing systems. And we honestly wouldn't really want to change that necessarily, because everyone's got their different methods of collecting money, whether that be PayPal, Stripe, Square, or some other billing and scheduling service. So what we do, though, is we help make it uber easy for you to control those relationships inside of CoachNow. You would just have to manually validate the payment on your side. But most coaches aren't dealing with thousands and thousands of charges happening every few days. It's usually 100 charges a month or a little bit less, and that's a six-figure income and then some. But we are looking to bring in our own payment platform, but it's specific to the way that we believe coaching should be done. So you wouldn't necessarily see a lesson pack option, right? Because I don't believe in lesson packs, to be candid. A lot of times they don't get used or they get delayed, and it's just not the best business model, in my opinion. So we would be doing everything we can to help coaches understand and leverage this more kind of subscription-based mindset, where an athlete has their coach in their pocket, and it's a retainer relationship versus a lesson pack thing that a coach needs to keep track of. Oh man, you're on lesson 6 now. And it's 3 years later. This is exhausting. So we want to move people away from that. But for now, you would be doing the charging on your own side, collecting as much of the money as you can. And even when we introduce it ourselves, we want to keep our fees to be almost non-existent, but just make it easier for people to do it.
Yeah, no, sure. I think the subscription model, I remember going out to set up David's first academy in South Korea a number of years ago now. And as a young guy, a little bit wet behind the ears, I guess, you go out there and very different culture when it comes to golf. You know, very hardworking, but then you go to a local driving range and you chat with your students about how they previously had their lessons, and we'd operate a one-on-one lesson, and it was, you book a 1 hour as a traditional way of doing things, and that was almost a new concept because at that time they paid a monthly fee to their coach, and whenever they went to the driving range to practice, the coach was there. So the coach worked a set period of time each day, and if you had your monthly subscription with the coach, you would turn up and you would be serviced. They'd walk along the line backwards, forwards. They may spend 10 minutes with you, they may spend 20, but at least you knew you were going to see them.
Yep.
So, you know, it was just an interesting way of looking at it. But I think we got a question from Jeff.
Sure. Yeah, and
Jeff,
as we,
if you want to open your microphone up, feel free to ask.
yeah, and as we get ready to take Jeff's question, just one comment on that is that on what you just said, Stuart, is that's very much the supervised practice model. And I would encourage all of you to have, again, multiple offers, right? If somebody is not ready for one-to-one, you put them in supervised practice, you put them in some sort of remote community, and then you can move them up and down this ladder of premium offers. So just as a point of reflection and clarity, I think there's just so many ways to do it. And I would encourage you, a lot of you, to just think about the different ways that can generate revenue for you.
Okay. Jeff, over to you.
Okay. I just got a quick question. I've wanted to move to CoachNow. I've been using another platform. Definitely want to move to CoachNow, but I just wasn't sure how to get all those students to CoachNow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So while we can't do a direct import from another platform because that wouldn't benefit that other service, so they're not going to make that thing available. One of the things that we can do is if you have an Excel sheet or a CSV or anything with their email addresses, we can
I have
walk
all
you through.
their emails and phone numbers and stuff. So I just
Perfect.
didn't know whether I needed to do it manually or.
No, what I would suggest, and what I would suggest, Jeff, is that just write down my email, Spencer@coachnow.io, and I'm sure Stuart will forward some information down the road here too. But shoot me an email, and then I'll introduce you to my main guy on my team, Alex, that helps coaches like yourself just jump in. So if you get to the point of where you're like, I'm ready to do it, then we can actually create 100, 200, 300 spaces or whatever you want to do, and show you how to onboard all of those people within a matter of minutes.
Okay, that's perfect. That's kind of what's been holding me back, because I was like, I don't know how I'd get all these people over there, but I definitely, okay, I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, please do, and we'll help you out. And as you hopefully are aware, is that we have a pretty seriously reduced rate currently with anybody that's affiliated with the Leadbetter world. So you'll have an opportunity to get in for not even close to the published price.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Stoked to work with you.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, Spencer, I mean, you've been gracious with your time. We're kind of getting to the close of the hour here, and I think there's some keys there really for any instructor looking to try and develop their business and you know, get away a little bit from, you know, the traditional model, to open up other avenues. But I think that the whole key to me, and what it really allows me to do with the coaches that we work with, is it really allows me to be connected with them. And I think that's the way that you market things now, is a connected coach. And it's really important, I think, that coaches understand that it is all about relationships. It is important that we can build relationships, build the trust, but we can also, you know, continue to develop that over a period of time. And I really think the platform helps do that, because it's quick, it's intuitive, it's interactive, and you know, the phone's something people never have out of their hands these days. But I think I've definitely been guilty and probably still am, of having to, still using multiple platforms, which zaps a lot of your time and a lot of your attention as well. And I would really recommend, if people are using CoachNow there, or platform, is try and get everything into one space and one platform to try and make sure you're using your time productively.
Yeah, and I'll maybe just echo that as we get closer to wrapping up, is that again, athletes are coming to you to be their guide, to direct them on the path of their skill development. As much as that, they're coming to you because they don't know what to do in any certain way with their development. So you need to take charge of how you communicate, how often you communicate, set the expectations around all of this, and monetize all of that. Because there's no reason not to. You cannot, I think as we all experience, monetize a bunch of random emails. You cannot monetize a bunch of random Instagram posts that aren't really threaded together. And so I would encourage you that if somebody sends you a text message and you're a CoachNow member and you're using it, you say, thanks for the message, put it in CoachNow. Thanks for the message, put it in CoachNow. You just have an autoresponder ready. And eventually no one will do that. And as you onboard athletes, new athletes, the onboarding process within CoachNow can be really, really powerful because you can create a space using a template. So you can have content already preloaded in there with a welcome video from you and anything that you want to add in there to set expectations. But the first thing is, this is how we communicate. And if this is not right for you, then you're not right for me. And you take that hard stance. And I know it sounds scary, especially if you're a new coach, but the more committed and more conviction you have about your way and your process, people buy in. They just follow along. And yeah, I think with that, my hope is that all of you reduce the risk for your future and just take charge. Be that entrepreneur and just take charge in any which way you can. And if you're working with an academy, do what you can to be a big part of that business and drive revenue, and you'll be invaluable to anybody that you work with.
Spencer, I mean, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I think there's some real key takeaways that you've just highlighted there. A little bit of a shift in focus, maybe a little bit of identifying as a coach who you are, who you want to work with, the specifics around that, and understanding that you need to have a little bit more of that entrepreneur mindset, and looking at going, well, and again, like you said before, I thought it was quite powerful. You said, how would I run my business if I'm planning to try and sell it? How am I going to try and do that? Forecasting is something I've spoken with a lot of coaches in terms of, especially self-employed guys, that say, what are you looking to turn over this year? How many individual lessons you're going to do? What are you going to do in terms of online coaching? How many subscriptions do you offer? And a lot of guys just look at you with a blank stare, and you're like, well, exactly. Are you just taking it day by day? And again, just really taking action each day, I think, and making sure that you make steps, and making sure that you're not out of sight or out of earshot of your students for too long. Like you said, the world is full of distractions. I know David at nearly every clinic or kind of group meeting we do talks about how many pieces of information are available on the internet for golf now. And it is so easy. And generally we deal with people that are passionate about golf. For the most part, it's their hobby. They spend a lot of their disposable income on it. And it's something they enjoy doing, and our job is to hopefully make that journey more enjoyable for them and help them unlock their potential. But we all know to do that, we need to be with them a little bit more often. A one-shot lesson helps, but it doesn't kind of solve the main problems for a long period of time. We all know it takes a little bit more time, and we'd love to spend more time with our students. And I think talking about this really opens up that opportunity to go, well, there is a way for me to be more with my students, but I don't have to be there in person. And looking at how you can be more productive with your time.
Yeah, it's bridging that gap. And I'm not saying there's going to be a major champion in the future that says thank you to the coach I never met in person. I'm not saying that's going to happen, because I don't believe that. But what I do believe in is this connection point. We call them micro touch points. And because you have something like CoachNow, you can just do these little things that maybe cost you a minute of your time, but derive big value for the athlete. So the last two things I would say is that if you don't have an app on somebody's phone representing your relationship to them, you will lose them to somebody that does. So just be considerate of that. Hopefully CoachNow is that bridge, but in the future, it might be something else for you. And the other is that these micro touch points, again, don't take a lot of time from you, but drive big value to your athlete, which eventually is going to cost you less time. And if you look in CoachNow and you look in the way that I deliver coaching, the majority of the content is from the athlete, because that's the expectation that I have set. And so it doesn't always have to be on you. That gives me great leverage to where I could coach in the special offers that I build, that I teach people how to build. And that's a separate conversation, but that allows me to have dozens and dozens of high ticket clients, and it doesn't cost me any more time. And in fact, over the span of our relationship, I spend less time with each athlete, but they still keep paying because they're getting better and they feel like I care and that I'm a part of their journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spencer, fantastic information. I think, you've obviously, created a platform there that is quite powerful in terms of bringing the coach and the athlete together, and anybody else that's associated with the athlete. I think that's a key part as well for me. One of the killers, just kind of a closing point for me, is when you work with a player and they have multiple coaches involved. For example, national level players or tour players generally now have somebody from, like you said, somebody from the fitness world, somebody from the mental world. They might have somebody from their equipment company, and their parents, for example, with juniors, might be in the group. There is total transparency, there's total clarity to the journey and to the plan that's laid out. And then therefore it's very player centric, and the player doesn't get lost in the middle, which generally the more coaches you have involved, the danger is that the messages might be aimed in the same direction, but they get mixed in the way that they're received from the student, or they are simply mixed. And then the person that suffers is the student. And that's the last thing any good coach wants. We want the student to be the successful one. We're a cog in the wheel, we're a spoke in the wheel, hopefully helping them along that journey. They're the ones that have to do work. They're the ones that have to put the hard graft in. And I think something like the platform there really helps. It helps that whole aspect as well.
And I'm really glad you said that, because that was the impetus of building it, was the effective collaboration amongst all the stakeholders. And I said that, I think, a little bit in the beginning. But if you're a coach that wants to really build a big business, collaboration and bringing other people in is one of the surefire ways to do it. But you have to do it effectively, and you need proper communication and transparency, like you said. So yeah, we're here to help in any way we can with that and with a whole bunch of other stuff, as I said.
Yeah, perfect. So I know you said to Jeff, but Spencer at coachnow.io, and part of the Leadbetter network, we are really thankful for the cooperation and the relationship we have, and the benefits that you extend to all of our coaches. So if you're one of our certified coaches or based at one of our academies, you don't have CoachNow and you want to be interested in it, contact me. We'll give you the discount code, and we can connect you to get you up and running as well. Spencer, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day out there.
You
as
well.
I close mine out. And thanks to everybody for watching today, and we'll speak soon.
All right, beautiful. Thanks everybody for joining, and we're here to help anytime we can. So thanks, Stuart. We'll see you soon.